Hi guys, part 3 of Sun and Moon. Enjoy! Disclaimer, I do not own the haiku characters that are to be used in this story. Photos or covers were picked from Google. Credits to the owner.
The soft music lingering in the room makes Shōyō relax. He is currently at the clinic. It is one of his appointments with Dr. Shirabu. The doctor was running late. As per his assistant, he attended to something urgent and would be back shortly. He is about to fall asleep, don't get him wrong. It is one of the places where he can find solace when there is a soft knock on the door. Dad, Shōyō yawned and cleared his throat as he said, Dr. Shirabu wasn't here yet. The shorty from Karasuno, the person said. Shōyō blinks. It was the first time that someone recognized him in the clinic. Hey, the setter from Shiratorizawa, he surprisingly said. What are you doing here? He asked as he sat near Shōyō. Oh, I have a doctor's appointment, Shōyō replied. With my dad. Confusion was evident from Kenjiro. Of course, he knows what his dad's profession is. He is also taking up the same course after all. Having a patient in this field is rare. It was rare, and you'll only think one thing when there is a patient. Yeah, with Dr. Shirabu. When he mentions the doctor's name, he then realizes, wait. Shirabu, it is your last name, too. Wow, I haven't thought you have a connection with my doctor. Kenjiro stared at Shōyō as the latter laughed. He smiled because the sincere sound was still there, but in his eyes, it was something slowly fading. Who is your soulmate? Shōyō slowly stops laughing as the latter asks who his soulmate is. Instead of answering, he asks, why do you ask? I just want to know. Shōyō stared at Kenjiro and said, here I thought, Kageyama only has a grumpy face among the setters of known. Kenjiro looked at Shōyō with all seriousness as he asked again, who is it? Just tell me. Why, I'll just give him some peace of my mind. And I guess I also ask Ashijima-san and Tendo-san so they can share their mind with him or her, Kenjiro said. Shōyō laughs at the latter's reply. You want to know who it is? Nope, it's not going to happen. It is already hard for me to stop Kageyama from murdering my soulmate. Hinata, stop laughing. So it wasn't the setter. But I agree with Kageyama. He deserves to be murdered, Kenjiro said. Shirabu-san. Oh gosh, Shōyō said as he slightly laughed. Kenjiro. My first name is Kenjiro. We are in my dad's clinic. If he came in, we would be both confused when you addressed both of us by our last name, Kenjiro said. Well then, Kenjiro, you can also address me with my first name, Shōyō happily said. Okay, but still, who is it? The door opened again, and Dr. Shirabu entered the clinic. Oh Kenjiro, what are you doing here? The doctor asked. Entertaining your patient here, Kenjiro plainly said as he looked again at Shōyō. So who is it? Just give me an initial. It's a him. That's not an initial, but does he play volleyball? Shōyō just playfully motioned, zipping his mouth shut. Come on, he frustratingly said and looked at his dad. Who is his soulmate? Kenjiro, it is confidential. Now, go out, I'm already late for our session, Dr. Shirabu said as he ushered Kenjiro out of the clinic. Fine, he sighed and headed toward the bookshelf. I just need to borrow this, he said as he took a book. He heads towards the table and takes a notepad and pen. Here, he gave Shōyō the note. Call me if you need anything. Thanks, he said as he took the note. I'm heading out. Bye. Kenjiro left the room as the doctor chuckled because of his son's antics. I never thought my son knew you, Hinata-kun. Oh, we met during the volleyball tournament, Shōyō said. Oh, right, he played as a setter in his high school, the doctor said, which Shōyō agreed. Anyways, Dr. Shirabu starts as he sits in his chair. Have you talked with your soulmate about your plan to go to Brazil? Yeah, I've talked about it with him and we will have our arrangement. He will visit me at least once a month, Shōyō lied. Okay, it is better to do at least once a month than none, but Hinata-kun. Keep in mind that in your current state, it is crucial to be on a long distance with your soulmate. Your bond still has dents, and we still want to repair it as soon as we can. I hope you explain to him the effects. You'll be the one suffering from touch starvation and it might lead to depression if he doesn't follow your arrangement, the doctor explained. Shōyō plastered a fake smile and nodded to the doctor. If anything goes wrong, you have to contact me immediately, okay? I still want our usual session, even on Skype, or else I'll be contacting Kageyama-kun, Dr. Shirabu said. I will. Okay. He took a paper and signed it. Here is your medical clearance from me. You're good to go. Thanks, Dr. Shirabu. He took the paper and headed out of the clinic. He took a deep breath as he thought, having to lie with your doctor was an uneasy task. Having a diploma in his hands was a dream come true for Shōyō, aside from continuing volleyball, of course. He was happy that he was able to graduate high school, and could start focusing on the training for volleyball and all. He walks around the campus, reminiscing some moments from the hallway of Karasuno High. Fond memories he'll cherish in his heart. He headed towards the rooftop to have a last look at the place he second liked. As he opened the door, he wasn't expecting to see anyone there. Captain Yamaguchi looks in his Shōyō's direction. Oh, Shōyō-kun. He came near Yamaguchi and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Nothing. I'm just curious what to see here." "I haven't gone here," Yamaguchi explained. Shōyō chuckled and said, "Obviously. No one is allowed to be here, after all." There was silence between them before Yamaguchi started their conversation. "It has a perfect view of the garden here." Shōyō looked towards the direction of the garden. He saw Kei standing in one of the spots that the couple usually stayed at. Yeah, a faint smile spreads on Shōyō's face when Yamaguchi stares at him. "Shōyō, Captain," he cuts off as he looks at Yamaguchi. "Thank you for being one of the best captains I had and one of my friends that I'll cherish." Shōyō bowed to Yamaguchi, showing his gratitude. "Shōyō-kun." Shōyō stood up and smiled again at Yamaguchi. The latter was startled by the expression of the orange-haired boy. Sadness took over the usual bright smile. "I have to go." Shōyō turned around and took a few steps towards the door. "Shōyō, Tadashi." He took a deep breath and said, "Take good care of Kei for me." Yamaguchi was surprised when Shōyō mentioned Tsukishima's first name like it was always how Shōyō called the lanky middle blocker. "See you around," he said as he exited the rooftop. After he visited the rooftop, Shōyō headed to the gym for a final goodbye when he saw Kageyama. He runs towards Kageyama and asks, "Toss to me." "Sure," the latter said. They practice at the gym for the last time as partners. "Your flight is today, right?" Aren't you changing your mind?" Kageyama asked. "Nope, I have to train so I can defeat you, Toby," Shōyō said. "Are you sure you're not going to tell the beanpole where you are heading?" "Nope." Kageyama catches the ball and stares at his friend. When Shōyō looked in his direction, worry was evident on his face. "Tobio, it is fine, I've got a go signal with Dr. Shirabu. It is okay for me to lose contact with Tsukishima." He wasn't sure if he would believe what Shōyō said. "Okay," Kageyama nods. "But in any case, if you felt off, contact me, okay? I'll do my best to be at your side immediately." He chuckled, "I'm on the other side of the world, Toby. And plane tickets were expensive. I have savings, or at least I'll contact Auntie to lend me some money," Kageyama determined, which made Shōyō laugh. He stared at the four corners of his room. The room which accustomed him to 3 years of loneliness. He'll be going to miss this room. He'll be going to miss his husband of 3 years. He took his suitcase, an envelope in his hand, and headed towards the living room. There is not much to reminisce about this place aside from the silence and small interactions between him and Kei. He looked at the gold band on his ring finger. He opened the envelope and pulled out a divorce paper. He signed it, returned the paper to the envelope, and placed it on the coffee table in the living room. He removed the ring and placed it on the top of the envelope. He took one last glance at the house and headed out. "You are finally free now, Kei." "Where is Kei? Aren't he not informed about your departure?" Shōyō's mom asked as the announcer called the passenger, taking the flight bound for Brazil. His parents and Kageyama were the ones who insisted on dropping him off. Shōyō smiled at his mom and stood up, taking his luggage. Mom, he paused. Both of his parents stared at him, waiting for Shōyō to continue. It has already been 3 years since Kei and I got married due to our family's affair. And I guess the Tsukishimas already considered paying their debts to our family. And as your son, I hope you'll understand my decision to have a separate way with Kei. So, it was not important to let him know where I was. He hadn't noticed that he started tearing up, not until his mom wiped his tears. Shōyō, I will be fine, I promise Mom. His mom hugged him tight, easily understanding the situation that her son had. His father hugged them both as he muttered, I'm sorry, Shō. He sniffled and broke the hug. It is not your fault, Dad. It's no one's fault. Shōyō looked at his best friend and hugged him tight, inhaling his scent, which brought comfort to him all these years. I'm going to miss you, Bakayama. Take good care of yourself, Shō. I'll wait for you, Kageyama whispered. Hinata breaks the hug and wipes his tears. See you around, guys. Bye. He headed towards the gate, and as he gave the attendant his passport, he looked at his parents and best friend as he gave them a final wave. When Shōyō disappeared from their sight, Hinata's mom looked at Kageyama and asked, You know something, don't you? The shiver ran down his spine. It was a rare occurrence for Mrs. Hinata to get angry. Kageyama simply nods. But Auntie, it is not my place to tell. Mrs. Hinata stared at Kageyama intently, and his husband intervened. Hun, just calm down. Contact our lawyer. We are heading right now to their matrimonial home, Mrs. Hinata said. Kei was standing under the shade of the tree where he and Yamaguchi stayed. He is waiting for the latter to come. Tsuki, Yamaguchi called out as he jogged towards Kei. Where have you been? Kei asks. Yamaguchi sat on the grass and leaned back on the tree trunk. At the rooftop. What are you doing there? He asked as he sat beside Yamaguchi. Did you know that the rooftop has a full view of this garden? No, I didn't know. I haven't stood at the rooftop. He nods. Yeah, that spot. He points at the rooftop. Has a perfect view of this part of the garden. Kei stared at Yamaguchi as the latter looked warily towards the rooftop. What is this? Yamaguchi cut him out as he said, all these years, Shōyō has a perfect view of us. Kei was baffled by what Yamaguchi told him. All these years, he felt that someone was watching them. Whenever he looks around, he hasn't seen anyone. He forgot that he should also look up towards the rooftop. I'm supposed to tell him I'm sorry. Why would you? For taking you away from him. Tadashi, I love you, and I was too selfish that I didn't want to lose you. I was so afraid that when your soulmate came around, he would take you away from me, Yamaguchi said. Tadashi, I also love you. I know he is your soulmate Tsuki. Kei became silent. He hasn't spoken to anyone, even to Shōyō, that they're each other's soulmate. The simple outline of the sun engraved in your ankle. The minimalist outline of the moon with a firefly in Shōyō-kun's chest. You saw it. Even Shōyō's mark. Yamaguchi nods. I've seen it just recently. That's when I came to realize that I hurt Shōyō-kun too much. Tadashi, even I hurt him. He still considered me as his friend Tsuki, he sobs. And he told me that I should take good care of you on his behalf. Kei simply listens to Yamaguchi as the latter continues. But I can't stand how sad he is as he says those words. He loves you, Tsuki. More than I did, and I know you cared about him. Tadashi. He wiped his tears and said, soulmates were made not to burden us but instead to make us a better version of ourselves. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Don't be sorry, Tsuki. I think you're just confused about your feelings. Yamaguchi stood up and said, I'm letting you go now, Tsuki. Shōyō needs you. But, I can take care of myself, Tsuki. Go. Kei heads towards their house, hoping to see Shōyō. When he entered, he was welcomed by eerie silence. Hinata, he called out as he walked toward upstairs, heading to Shōyō's room. He knocks on the door and asks, Shōyō, are you there? He opened the room and saw no one. The room was neat and clean. He hurriedly walked towards the closet and opened it, which was empty. He took his phone and dialed Hinata's number, but it was out of reach. When he reached the living room and was about to contact Hinata's mom, he took notice of the ring and envelope that was placed on the coffee table. No. He nervously took the ring and opened the envelope. No. He tried again to call Shōyō, but still, the line was out of reach. Damn it. He was about to go out and search for Shōyō, but as he opened the door, he saw Shōyō's parents and Kageyama. Where is Shōyō? No one answered his question, but Mrs. Hinata pushed past him and headed inside, followed by Mr. Hinata and Kageyama. Kei was quite confused by Mrs. Hinata's gesture. Mother. Kei, have you signed the divorce paper? Kei was surprised by Mr. Hinata's question. I haven't. I want to talk with him first. Why? Tears started to fall on Mrs. Hinata, as she remembered how his son cried at the airport. I'm sorry. Mr. Hinata cleared his throat as he said, after you signed the divorce paper, send it to. I don't want to sign it. Mr. Hinata scoffed, why not? Based on my son's reaction, you'll happily sign those papers by now. I want to fix this, he answers. Kei, Mrs. Hinata said, please, mother, father. Give me another chance. Mrs. Hinata took Tsukishima's hand and squeezed it. I told you to take good care of my son, Kei. But you didn't. You hurt him. My son doesn't deserve to be hurt. You should have just told us you disagree with this marriage instead of hurting my son. I'm sorry. You cannot fix this, Kei. Mr. Hinata disagrees. I have to try, father. I have to. He is my soulmate. So I have to fix this. Hinata's parents were surprised by the sudden revelation. Their son hasn't mentioned his soulmate. You cannot fix something that is already beyond repair, Tsukishima. Kageyama said, letting everyone know his existence. You know about this, Tobio. Is this what you mentioned earlier? Kageyama averted his gaze, afraid of confirming whatever Mrs. Hinata's conclusion. Okay, this is too much. Whether you are my son's soulmate or not, just sign the papers and send them to us. You can keep this house. It was Shōyō's request, after all, Mr. Hinata authoritatively said as he took Mrs. Hinata. Let's go. He looks at Kageyama and asks, are you coming with us? He shook his head and answered, I can take a cab from here, uncle. Mr. Hinata nods and leaves the house. Kageyama, why did you take so long to wake from your reverie? Kageyama frustratingly said as he glared at Tsukishima. You know how Shōyō suffered alone from your actions. Do you even know the consequences of what will happen if someone tries to break their bond with their soulmate? Kei was silent. He knew or heard about the possible consequences of breaking the bond but hasn't paid much attention to it. Of course, you don't, Kageyama chuckled. You don't even care in the first place. You even confessed to Yamaguchi in front of Shōyō. You make him watch how you slowly break your bond. How you slowly break his heart. Each word Kageyama said with venom. Kei flinched at Kageyama's voice. It was at that moment that he realized the weight of his actions towards Shōyō. Now tell me, how will you fix him, huh? How will you fix his heart that you shattered into a million pieces? I should have punched you since the day I learned you were his soulmate. Tsukishima kept silent. He loves you. He loves you too much, but instead, you hurt him. You've hurt my best friend enough. Well, not enough, you've hurt him too much. Let him be free, Tsukishima. Just like how he sets you free from him. Kageyama left the house after that. Kei wasn't able to say anything in his defense. After all, he can't defend himself. He is in the wrong.
To be continued. If you like this video, consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button. Bye!